Okay, so within the elements, of course, there's the space element, and the space is always there. Space is every place. If there's not space, we can't move. Nothing can move. So it's important to kind of become aware, feel the spaciousness, feel the spacious quality that's always there. When we're all upset, we get very much, we tighten up and we feel suffocated to some extent. And, that's when emotions overtake us, when we can become very upset, or even when we're driving and things happen. But there is the ability to all of a sudden become aware of the space. Becoming aware of the space that's there allows our mind to breathe. Our mind's breathing, it's already breathing, but we're not breathing. We're going in and we're kind of tightening and squeezing. It's like Lama Yeshe used to always say, tell people, relax. Relax. You're squeezing. You're squeezing. So even like when we're meditating, when we feel, the terms that uptight, which is, getting the tightness that happens up over here. Become aware of ourself, become aware of our body, become aware of what goes on, and we can begin to feel the elements, within ourselves. And in this case, the space element is extremely important. Space is like emptiness. From emptiness, everything arises. If emptiness was not part of all phenomena, ourself, our mind, then we would only be what we are, and we could never change. But because there's this openness, because there's this space, we have the beauty of the ability to reach our potential, to experience our potential. Even if it's for a moment, even for a second, we glimpse it. Even while we're sitting and we're meditating, and the struggle, we stop the struggle. We just completely get to that state of letting go, which is, again, I have to use the English words. Letting go is an action. Real letting go is non-action. It's absence of action. So whatever arises, instead of battling, instead of grasping at some things, it's just an openness that just allows the experiences, to come into our being. So the meditation is more or less it's our laboratory. We're learning to look within, because all we've done most of us, all we've done is we've grown up to look outside. Everything is outside. Everything is what we're looking at. Everything is what we smell from outside. Everything is what we feel. Everything is out there. So the meditation begins a self-exploration. We are now entering inner space. We're not going into outer space here, we're going into inner space. And once we begin to use, our meditation, as this ability, we begin to find out a little bit more, because we didn't, it's not like we go to school and then they say, okay, well, your body is this and your mind is this. You just go to school, they just do things, nobody tells anything. Unless you're lucky enough maybe to be, brought up in some family that has some study, has done something. So the Buddhists look within. But what they're looking for within, as I said, is not just for Buddhism, can be anything. It's not held as a particular, only Buddhist can have that. Anybody can have it, because reality is within us. So we use the meditation, to go within, and we begin to observe. Why do we begin to observe? Because what our mind actually is aware. And its true nature is clarity. So it's got a clarity and ability to know. So in general, we're made up of our body. We're made up of our speech, which also includes our energy within us. And, we're made up of our mind. So mind, to me, is another difficult English word, but everybody knows it because mind sounds like something singular. What we have is, when we sit and we meditate, we begin to see that it's like a river. We're a stream of consciousness. Our awareness is a stream of consciousness that's always moving, always changing, never the same. Moment by moment, always changing. Within that stream is the awareness. When our awareness is knowing correctly, we're in balance. When our knowing is distorted, that's when we veer from the path, because we're not seeing things, in the proper manner, in the way that they exist, relatively or absolutely, any way possible. We're not seeing it. So this ability, within our mind, to be able to realize its true nature is something we're always feeling. So in Buddhism, some of the beginning early teachings talk about the Four Noble Truths. I'm sure most everybody has heard something of Four Noble Truths, but so why they're called truths? Because they're true. So the first of the Noble Truth is the truth of dissatisfaction. And so, Buddha basically, when he first talked, this is what he taught first, because people had to realize we're in a dissatisfactory state. And then he taught the second noble truth, which is what's the cause of that dissatisfaction, which is the type of negative feelings, negative thoughts, and those create actions, which is what's known in Sanskrit as karma, law of cause and effect. So once we begin to see things and do things right, we try to do proper things, correct karma, positive kind of karma of kindness, warmth, happiness to others. There's kind of an interesting, I'm pretty sure, I think it was Lama Zopa who used it quite a bit. So the states of mind, which are, Sanskrit is klesas, which are really kind of what's called delusions. So there's lots of them, but the main ones is the one of ignorance, which is, not understanding reality and not understanding even relative reality. And then there's grasping and attachment, and then there's aversion. So our life is set up that everything we come in contact with our deluded mind. So the word Lama Zopa used to use was, he used to call it I'm losing the thought for a second. The deluded, instead of just calling it a delusion and things, he called it a disturbing thought. So some people say, okay, so it's a disturbing mind. Why is it disturbing? Because not only are we harming others when we come up with our actions out of this delusion, but when we look inside, we're also disturbed at that time. There's something that's not 100% right, within ourselves. And so basically, once we begin to understand that that we've created an environment, we've created a world that, this is me, and because this is me, then that's that, and that's that. And so we've built ourselves a house. Or you could say, like in the Tibetan terms, you've seen the things of the mandalas. I don't know if you have any here, but the mandalas that are usually shown are mandalas of an enlightened beings.
Like this?
Yeah. So it becomes the enlightened environment. Our mandala doesn't look like that. It's a very confused one. That one's totality. So Buddha does not mean necessarily the historical Buddha. The historical Buddha taught what he learned, but Buddha means opened up, awakened, fully awakened. It means wake up, We're walking around asleep most of the time. Almost all the time. And then we are asleep a lot of the time, and we don't know how to use the sleep either, but we walk around asleep. And we daydream. We don't have any mindfulness. We don't have our mind in its place. And so when we lose track of who we are and what we are, then we react differently. And so we can't even, why is it the truth of suffering, or the truth of, I guess you could say, not necessarily, suffering sounds like, okay, we live in the West here, we're not suffering much, but I mean, you're suffering because you took a fall yesterday and, you feel a physical, that's only one physical suffering. Really, the suffering that's talked about is on all different levels. There's actually 3 levels of suffering, which I'm not going to talk about it today, but it's dissatisfaction. So, for the most part, when we meditate, we more or less learn to start making peace with ourselves, and we start to be able to appreciate all experiences coming within. It doesn't matter what's coming in. It doesn't matter if it sounds. It doesn't matter if we feel something in our leg, in our back, or whatever it is. We begin to just open up and relax and not fight within those things. Because what takes place now, what's that dissatisfaction is that, we're moving at 100 miles an hour. If we're driving out on the highway and we're going 50, 60 miles an hour, we can't see what's going on when we pass because we're moving so fast. If we're in an airplane, we're even faster. But when we slow down, we begin to see, where are we going? There was an interesting movie that came out. It was actually written by Bruce Lee. I'm sure you all know Bruce Lee. I think it was called something like Circle of Iron. And the person who played in it was David Carradine. So I don't know if you know David Carradine. He played in that show Kung Fu, which actually Bruce Lee wanted to be, but they wanted it. There was some prejudice there. I'm not going to talk about that, but the movie was, not that it was a great masterpiece of anything, but it was very interesting because it was a martial arts tournament that was taking place. And the winner of that tournament was allowed to go up the mountain and be able to get the secret to life, get the answers to life by going up there. So the beauty of the way that Bruce Lee wrote this is that, this actually David Carradine played each of these different parts. So at one point he was sitting someplace and it was like he was being attacked by monkeys. They're all jumping around, jumping like this, and and he's a little bit freaking out. But then he realizes, to just relax a little bit and let go, and all that noise kind of goes away. And then he meets some woman and things, and then he's with this woman, and that basically the next morning he wakes up and I think she's like dead or something, and so he's working with his desires, working with his aversions, working with his anger, working all these different energy things. Anyway, I won't go through the whole movie. There's quite a few different things of what he did.
It's quite interesting.
It's an interesting idea, the movie. So he goes up to the mountain, and the guy that's up there, sits up there, and he says to him, I will give you this book but if you take this book, you have to stay here, and I leave. So he says, okay, and the guy, and so now this guy went up there and he did this. The guy that was doing all these goofy things was the part David Carradine played, like playing somebody that was like attacking him and somebody that was doing this and that. So he goes up there, and then finally he takes it and he opens the book, and all of a sudden it opens up. He gets to the page. What do you think is there? No, a mirror.
Ah, yes.
Himself, I was going to say.
Yeah, a mirror. A mirror. So the reason is that the answers are within ourselves. The inner guru. We learn from people, and it leads in a particular way. Eventually, we begin to find within ourselves, the answers, to what's taking place. And of course, the beauty is that, so our mind, our awareness, is like a mirror in that it reflects. Our awareness reflects all objects. A mirror doesn't say, I'm not going to, like this object or not like that object. It just reflects. When the mirror's there and something's in front of it, it reflects. That's the nature of the mirror. The nature of our mind is to reflect what comes in through our other senses, our eye senses, our ears, our nose, our touch, our feelings. So what happens after that? That's the key. So as we come into contact, immediately we have a freshness that is aware. And then it's like, oh, I like that. I don't like that. I like it, so I grasp after it. I don't like it, and I push that away. So, like Lama used to say, the beauty of the mirror is that if you have a mirror and you've got dirt on it and you look at yourself, it's distorted, you can't see. But the mirror and the dirt are not one. So you can remove the dirt from the mirror, and the mirror can then reflect clearly. So our disturbed states of mind, our anger, hatred, jealousy, all of these different emotions that have become our personality, that we've pounded in, that because this is me, this is what I have, this is what I go after, is not one with our true nature. So the true nature, our calm and clear awareness, is always there. And as we move along the path, as we practice like Vajrayana, Tantrayana, different practices and things, you begin to understand the wisdom of emptiness, the emptiness and bliss that is part of our real nature. Our nature is blissful. But we don't look for the blissfulness, we look for these small little conditioned type of things and chase after those as the answer. There is absolutely nothing wrong with everything that happens with our life as far as, what we get, whether we have houses, whether we have cars, with our family. There's nothing wrong with any of that. What's wrong with it is, what do we do about it? Do we treat it incorrectly? Do we overestimate and think that if I have this car and I have this house, can I be happy? So that if we start to lose the house, which is also one of the truths that Buddha taught, is impermanence. Things are always changing. So we're not going to always have that house. We're not going to have that car. We're not going to always have our husband, our wife, our children are not going to always be with us. This is the play of life that goes on. And when our mind becomes more in tune with that, we can then begin to, instead of grasping after it, we can begin to actually appreciate it. And we begin to enjoy it more. because it's coming, because the wisdom of our mind is there, and it realizes, but instead when our mind is in these kind of diluted states, or I'll tell you a term Lama Yeshe used to use quite often, which it took me a long time to understand. Almost everything he would always say would click immediately, but he used the term our superstitions. You familiar with superstition? Mm-hmm. So superstition is based not on reality. It's thinking something. That's what happens. We're not basing our day-to-day things on a reality. We're basing them on these kind of superstitions. So that as we live, and the more we begin to allow our mind, to settle into its clear, clean, open space, and begin to deal, with what goes on, we begin to break ego's pattern, what's known as the chains of karma. We're not free now because we've made ourselves not be free, because every time this happens to me, I have to react this way. Every time this happens to me, I have to become upset. But there's an inner intelligence inside of us. And that inner intelligence is telling us, basically, that there is something more, there is a better way to be dealing, with our life. And because of that, we can live an open life, an awakened life. Enjoy what's taking place. Otherwise it's the same thing that happens all the time. Why we practice mindfulness? We practice mindfulness because we need to be aware. Like I always say, we sit there. If the food could bring back ultimate happiness, we could just keep eating the food, but we know we eat too much and then we get sick. And we have other illnesses that take place because we take ourselves out of balance. But the worst part is we don't taste the food. There's my favorite food, so I just put it in, like when I give my dog his food and he doesn't taste it all, he just gulps it down. But so when we begin to practice mindfulness, when we begin to, actually taste our food, chew the food, we can actually begin to feel the energy, the nutrients, that can take care of our body and replenish our body. We can breathe the air around ourselves, with what we're doing. So it's more or less, we always keep thinking we have to be getting to something else. But it's with us all the time. Really, when you look at when we live within our conceptual, diluted type of world, then we're caught within limits. Those are man-made limits. They don't really exist. I'll tell you another story. When I was young, of course it was. You were maybe around, but many of the others, maybe too, not yet. But, the original Star Trek. You're familiar with Star Trek, the show? Okay, so the original Star Trek, of course, had Spock and had Captain Kirk inside of it. So,
Never watched it.
Never watched it? Well, you'll get the story. You'll get my idea of the story anyway. So, one time, all of a sudden, Spock and Captain Kirk were captured by some enemies, I don't know who, and they locked them up, but there were no bars. They couldn't get out. It was like a force field. They couldn't get out. So Spock sat there, I think, for a while, so long, I can't remember. He sat there, he meditated, and then he realized that wall, the jail, was created by their mind. When they let go, they could walk right out. That was on Star Trek, but that's
so powerful.
Very powerful.
Very true.
Very true. So when you understand, with what we're, locked within, and all of a sudden we let go of it, more or less. On one of the videos that that was done when Martin was talking to me, I'll never forget, even though it was so many years ago, that there I was in San Francisco. I was in San Francisco. I had my van. I had my 2 dogs. I had everything that was in that van. And I went and got my friend up in Washington. And he actually had a dog as well. And the funny thing is he said, let's leave the dogs inside the car, which even to this day I'm a little suspicious of now, because, everything was in there. So I had 2 bikes, a little TV, stereo, all kinds of things that were in the back of the van. But I said, no, I'm not leaving the dogs inside there. I come out the next day and the van's gone. But there's people there working, construction, the streets going boom, 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 breaking the street. So I said, did they tow cars away? And they said, no. So anyway, my van was stolen with everything in it. We were at our place was the last night at this apartment. And so basically everything I had was inside there except for myself and the dogs and a few things. But the relief I felt from the attachment, to those objects of just, they're gone, I honestly felt like 100-pound weight, was off my back all of a sudden. I knew about non-attachment, even there where I lived in San Francisco, there was there's a great Zen master that I had trained under a little bit, but I'd already been looking into things like this, Suzuki Roshi, but there was the feeling of non-attachment, So they finally found my van. Of course, nothing was left inside of it. And the van wasn't worth all that much either. It was an old Volkswagen van, But anyway, the fact of the matter is that, if we're not appreciating, what goes on, with our life, with what's around us, with everything we have, even within our meditation, we cannot, we cannot go into and try to push away thoughts, So as I talked about at the beginning, we're made up of our mind, we're made up of our body, we're made up of our energy, which is our speech. So mantras are healing. That's part of the energy to, as well. But then the breathing exercises too. Those are there. But within the mind, basically, the ability to be aware. It's also not only aware, but it's also that streaming, continuously moving on. It's never, mind doesn't stand still for a second. When we experience it for a second, stop pushing away the past, stop grasping at the future, and we can't even grasp at the now. Because the now is not there either. Now is gone as well, so now it's another now. All of a sudden, letting things kind of slow down, this is just like an incredible breath of fresh air. We begin to feel, the openness, the space. Even our ability to breathe all of a sudden opens up, and, our lungs are filling up, our body's filling up, because, again, we're getting ourselves into alignment with reality. And there's something always grasping at that. This little thing that things are not exactly 100% right all the time. That to me is like when you get a new car, and then you get a little scratch on it. You can't be happy because you got that little scratch, or there's always something that's not right. That's actually a wake-up call. That's our energy. That's our wisdom telling us, to wake up. And once we do that, we find out that it's not someplace else. It's not somewhere else. It's every moment, every micro moment within us has the ability to have openness and clarity. So what stops that? That's the disturbing thoughts. That's the disturbing thing, the energy. The energy has got muddied up, and so sometimes, it's not just intellectual. It's not just, oh, I know I shouldn't get mad at that person, even though, okay, something about them I just don't like, but I shouldn't get mad at them. That's just intellectual. But the feelings, the moods. So what happens with all of that? Nothing has to happen. That's the whole point. In our meditation, when we learn to be there and not fight with what arises, we've taken ourselves off of the object and we're just on our awareness. We're just on our mind. Even our awareness is aware of the subject mind, not the object of that person, this weather, this, that, whatever it might be. And so actually, meditation becomes what real meditation is, because there isn't any feeling, there isn't any thought to go anywhere else, to do anything else. It's fantastic to just be there, and you appreciate that time. And that creates a earthquake in the middle of our ego's world. Ego's a weird word too. Okay, everybody uses ego, but mostly ego is kind of used in a sense that it's talking more about, the kind of arrogance of somebody. Ego does not exist. That's why in Buddhism it's called egolessness. Realize our egolessness, because when we try to go inside what every part of our mind, of our feelings, of our thoughts, of the world around us, we can never find something that's a permanent, locked in, oh, well, this is me. There's there's this place, that reference point, that off of this reference point that I've created. Okay, I guess I'm telling stories today, so I got to tell a story that I just remembered. When I was in India, and this is, at this point it was like early 70s, might have been like 1973 or so. So I'm in India and I'm with my friend, and we went to an area and we wanted to go look around, but then we weren't sure how to get back to the train station. So we walk up, there's a police officer standing there, and my friend asks him, oh, is the train station over there? And he goes like this. And so my friend starts to walk, and I said, wait a minute, hold on for a second. So I turn and I say to them, did Russia bomb the US last night? He could have said no English, or don't understand, or whatever it is, but I don't know, maybe some form of ego that he had to just say something. He was trying to be helpful, I guess, but wasn't really helpful, because he was sending us off in the wrong direction, not because he told us to go there. My friend said there, and he said, yeah, so, the reality is that when we try to find, this very comfortable, world of who we are, and we refer to the entire world off of that, it can't be found. It cannot be found. Because all there is this stream of consciousness, stream of awareness that changes each moment. Within it, you can't find one little thing inside there that's there. But we've become the actors in the play that believe it. Like I heard the story, I don't think that was ever true, but of the guy that played Superman, dying because he thought he could fly, and jumped off. I don't believe that was a true story. But the thing is that we forget to understand that we wrote the play, we wrote the movie, and we're acting within it only. So our actions that are taking place in this. So in the practices, we need to start off with doing. That's why Buddha taught about the cause of our problems, the negative karma. We have to start doing positive actions as well. They might not be pure, they might not be 100% pure, but they're kind of on the path, and so they open up space. They create gaps so we can get bigger gaps and begin to realize that there's no wall there at all, like happened on Star Trek at some point. But at the beginning, so what is that called? What do Buddhists call that? They call that accumulating merit. So to become, when they talk about Buddha, Buddha in Tibetan is Sangye, which means completely purified and accumulated all positive. Actually, we don't need to accumulate. I don't believe anyway. I think those are all, within inside of ourselves, which we open, which we finally open up. But the accumulation of merit is kind of like a bank account. So by creating positive type of actions and activities, it puts us in space. So when people become very, very generous, and we're even, for myself, I'm going to believe in previous life. So I say in previous lives, if you're generous and you're very giving, you find yourself in a situation where, you're not in total poverty. Things seem to come to you a little bit better. So you accumulate, these types of merit through that, and through patience, and through, warmness. And then we begin to realize the wholeness of the environment, the wholeness of the universe, that we are all part of the same thing. So which I'm not going to talk about today, but of course in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, it's the talk about understanding, and loving all life, all living beings. Because if there's anybody that's, just like within our family, if everything's kind of going well for us, but somebody is having a problem, we can't be completely happy. We're going to have that little scratch on the car then. It's going to be gnawing at our mind, gnawing at our energy. So in the Mahayana tradition, you first began to realize by sitting, realize your own pain, your own insecurities, your neurotic behaviors, and then you begin to understand that for others. And so the path is to basically enlighten oneself to be able to help take all others from that state as well. Why does that happen? Because once we've went into the openness, the true openness and space of our mind, there is no me there anymore. It's got no boundaries. So that means we're all the same. So everybody, not the same that you're me and I'm you, but my feelings, just like I want to protect myself from having pain and suffering, I want that for all others, like I would for my own children, for example, or someone that we loved. So that's kind of a long discussion getting into the Mahayana part of the path, which we'll leave for another day. And I think I've kind of talked enough for today anyway. So
if we connect with that and become aware, all of us, to that space in us,
mm-hmm.
So we can transform anything.
Well, you're talking about like magic or something, or
no, meaning like
emptiness.
Like if we all become aware, all humanity,
mm-hmm.
so their life on earth can be changed.
Oh, of course, yeah, no,
completely different story, everything.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, maybe one of the bad things that happened, in my opinion, but was a gift to the world, was Chinese invading Tibet. The Tibetans were stuck inside a country, isolated to themselves inside there with this knowledge, with this wisdom, with the, just incredible, beings. And now they're all over the world, Well, it's something that, absolutely, things can change. But they change by changing ourselves. We change ourselves, and then, we can change other things around us a little bit more.
Well, then TV needs to show more about going to awareness.
Well, that means you have to put on your TV what you want. So in that case, you can put on some YouTube things that are showing you more awareness. So that's your choice then, right? It's not, we can't blame it on TV. You got to just blame it on how you use TV. That was my point before. It's not, the things around us, all things, all phenomena are what's talked about as one taste. We're the ones that imply, oh, this is good, this is bad, or this is, the third feeling is indifferent, which is a form of ignorance because I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't know this person, so I don't like them or dislike them, and it's just like a fogginess, that indifference. So there's either a grasping or a rejecting or just a fogginess. That's what we go beyond.
But it's possible, like from the sense of compassion, to want to see aware myself and others, so then everybody will be more happy.
Well, that's what, that's what in Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism, in the Mahayana Buddhism, the bodhicitta, which bodhi, again gets back to the word, it's kind of awakened. Citta is mind, but it's not mind, it's thought. So it's the thought of enlightenment. And why you have that thought of enlightenment is so that you're able to help others. It's like, do I go to school to become a doctor so I can help, people physically better? Some kind of doctor, doesn't matter. Doctor, chiropractor, you go for this. What are we doing? We're going to awaken our mind to benefit others. That's the bodhicitta thought. Okay, and the person, the bodhisattva, is a person. Sattva means like person, has that awakened thought. Because it's now gone from a small little narrow about me and my world, and has gone and opened up. Unlimited, for all living beings. And so then you try to have your intention, what you're doing for your meditation, but for whatever you're doing. Even if you're, you're helping somebody, you're working on someone, it's to help them to be going beyond their own pain and suffering. But we need to have a type of wisdom. So we develop the wisdom which allows us to do these things. That's the idea, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know about it, but it's what I've heard. Doing okay there? Mm-hmm.
So when you are in emptiness, then what goes around you in this world, it makes no sense. I mean,
well, again, I think you were at the last one we were talking with emptiness. So emptiness is not nothingness in a sense that there's nothing there. Everything that's around us, which is what's called phenomena, exists simultaneous. Its nature, its absolute nature in the Sutrayana teachings, its absolute nature is emptiness. So the chair exists as a chair conventionally. That's conventional truth. Absolute truth is that chair is empty of any chairness. You pull that whole chair apart and you got legs, and the legs are made up of wood, and the wood's made up of nails, and you take it into pieces, and scientists have already found that you break everything down, neutrons, and I don't know all the words for these tiny little particles, but you're never going to find an absolute particle within that. But on a conventional level, the world, it exists around. If you want to use that as a chair or use it as a table, we then label it something. So emptiness, in a sense, emptiness is like I said with the space, because of space, if there wasn't space, we can't move. So emptiness is that anything can come from that. So from the emptiness of our mind, the empty nature of our mind, because we are not this solid person we think we are, a self-existing person, from that perspective, we can become anything. You see? So all these different, I've spoke before, all these different Buddhas are basically, it's just Buddha, but Why are they different? Because we're different. Because we have different things wrong with us. We need different practices. We need different things. But it's all that awakened energy that's expressing itself how we need it. So I guess in the case with that story, that mirror was Buddha manifesting as a mirror within that book, to teach that the answer is the Buddha within you. So remember to not go to extremes. So that's what our problem is extremes. Eternalism and nihilism. Nihilism would be emptiness only on its own. Eternalism is this just exists, that exists only on its own, rather than seeing that it's different ways of energy coming together at different times. And because its nature, because its true nature is emptiness, then because of that, it doesn't have any badness on its own. It doesn't have any goodness on its own. It just is. Difficult point to get, but...
No, I just thinking when you're like, when you at that state of being like, you realize you are here right now, and then what to do? I mean, this is it.
Yeah, what to do is whatever it is to do. So when it's time to leave, you get up and you go.
Just live regular life, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's all it is. It's not. The world is not different places around. Okay, yeah. It's there within us. So we need to be able to experience that, live with that.
So basically just experience, right?
You experience it with the open mind. With the open mind. Feel the spaciousness, feel the openness, experience it. Okay. So, what's always interesting is that, when you live in different countries, you begin to loosen somewhat in a certain degree, because all of a sudden you always think, oh, this is the way, this is the way. I was leading a meditation course thing in Nepal, and there was a guy sitting in the back of the thing, and he said, but wait a minute, Jesus said my way is the only way. So I said to him, you're right. He was right. His way is the only way. But that doesn't mean if Jesus sweeps culturally this way and Buddha sweeps differently because he's in India and they sweep, use a different method of sweeping. It's not that.
There's a million ways to go.
It's not the act. It's not that action of what they're doing. They're right. They're 100% there. They're aware in that moment. So their way is both correct,
Yeah.
but the expression of it is cultural.
This is
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
And even individual, because
Yes, yeah, but so when I was in the bazaar in India when I first got there, I paid for something, and the guy behind went there and went like that through the my change down like that. Mm-hmm. So immediately my mind thought, how rude. And then I realized he wasn't rude. That's just what they do. They take it and then they throw it. It's not a.
you accepting that, right?
Yes.
Your mind accepting
Yeah.
that move.
Yeah. If I want to interpret that, because I grew up that you say, oh, thank you very much, sir. Here's your change, or whatever it is. It's different.
It's actually served like your teacher.
Oh, it is.
He awakened you in honesty.
Yeah, but,
In the present moment.
yeah,
Well,
and
don't be nice, be honest.
and I had some other experiences like that too, which is true. Very big teachers that. So when you go into, especially you'll see when you go to Delhi. Mm-hmm. I know you said you're going there.
Yeah.
It's a couple weeks. When you go to Delhi, or when you go to any of the Mumbai, or you go to any of the big towns or even small ones, when you go into the bazaar, they're going to all have these different things for sale. Almost everything at this shop is the same at this shop. So I was talking to a guy at this shop over here, and you almost have to you have to almost take everything, whatever price they put, you have to take it down to about a quarter of that or a tenth of it or something, so you get into a thing of negotiation. So at a certain point, you're going, no, and I'm pointing, well, wait a minute, he's got it right over there. At the other shop, sitting over there. And so, finally I decided this energy was not going well, so I smiled, and he smiled back. And all the tension kind of broke. Yeah, and I ended up buying, the thing. But it all has to do with, how we.
It's a play.
It's a play. It's how it's how we, live the play of life. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be serious.
You can be serious, but not too serious.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Let's finish video.
Finished? Okay.